In 1791, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States, were ratified. Among those amendments was the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. It states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Gun control in America. Throughout our country's short yet vehement history, we have strived to promote and uphold the values put forth by our founding fathers, both domestically and abroad. In the Declaration of Independence, it states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." These values are what our country is built upon. 12 years after the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, the Constitution was ratified in 1788. It set out to establish the governance structure, the role of the government, and the rights of the people. The Bill of Rights was ratified in 1791 to appease the anti-federalists. It included such things as the right of the people to speak and assemble freely, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to trial by jury, and the limitations of federal power. Many of you likely already knew this, so why am I reviewing it? Well, that's because I believe that it is important to recognize that the issue of gun control isn't just another social issue. The right to keep and bear arms was of sufficient importance to be amended to our Constitution. But that was in the late 1700s. How do guns affect us today in the 21st century? The CDC states that in 2020 there were 45,222 firearm-related deaths in the United States, of which more than half were suicides and more than 40% were homicides. There is also the issue of mass and school shootings that plague the modern firearm landscape. It is understandable that people would wish to prevent these issues through government intervention. According to a poll from Gallup, 57% of Americans say that the laws covering the sale of firearms should be made more strict. So if we were to legislate the use of firearms, what would be the best approach to craft the most effective legislation? The most obvious choice would be to reference research papers and studies. And for the most part, this is what people have been doing. So what's the problem? Well, it's complicated. In summary, properly studying gun legislation and making causal conclusions is extremely difficult. Some would say nigh impossible. Statistician and Professor Aaron Brown has said that these are complex issues that require rigorous scientific investigation to come to any kind of useful conclusion, and they depend far more on individual variation and broad social and cultural factors than on any regulation. A 2020 meta-analysis by the RAND Corporation, a credible nonpartisan research organization, of 27,900 gun control studies seems to support Brown's assertion. Of the 27,900 studies, only 123 were rigorous enough to fit the criteria set by RAND. Some of the issues that they wish to be addressed are methodological limitations of earlier studies, such as problems with statistical power, model overfitting, covariate selection, and poorly calibrated standard errors. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I fully understand what that means, but it should highlight at least some of the issues that need to be addressed with the studies in this area. Based on RAND's analysis, they recommend 4 laws: implementing child access prevention laws, which require that a gun is safely stored out of reach from an unsupervised minor; repealing standard ground laws, which allow a citizen to use deadly force under an imminent threat of harm; implementing laws prohibiting gun ownership while individuals are subject to domestic violence restraining orders; and waiting periods. However, just because a policy works at reducing a certain metric doesn't necessarily mean we should implement it. For example, child access prevention laws would result in saving 2 lives a year across 11 states, while the implications of how they affect home defense is unknown. It is logical to assume that safely storing firearms would reduce accidental shootings and possible suicides while making a response to a home invasion slower. Restrictions that significantly affect illegal gun owners' everyday use of their weapon for minimal societal benefit is a hard sell. If we must implement more restrictions, then there are a few that I think are good and a few that I think we should avoid. First, we must focus on making sure that laws that we do have in place are properly enforced and implemented. The FBI database is not always the most accurate and up-to-date. One issue is that police agencies and even the military are not reporting all their data, such as felony charges and dishonorable discharges. This means that people who are barred from purchasing a firearm are allowed to because their information is not up to date in the database. Another group of people who may not be allowed to purchase a firearm are people deemed mentally unstable by professionals. To address this issue, many people support red flag laws. I strongly disagree with these types of laws. They allow for individuals to be deemed unfit to own a firearm and flagged. Their weapons will then be confiscated until they are investigated and again deemed worthy of ownership. As we saw earlier, among the first 10 amendments was the right to trial by jury. These laws seem to violate that right. The longer I focus on the topic, the more I find myself drifting away from the idea that guns need to be further regulated. I believe that our issues with guns in America are overstated and the result of a deeper societal issue. Often the people who commit horrible atrocities such as school and mass shootings are deeply troubled and hurting. They have been pushed to act out in sickening ways for one reason or another. Simply limiting access to firearms to such people will not address the larger issue and will only stand to hurt law-abiding citizens. We must reflect more carefully and deeply on the issues that we face. I am not saying that I know the answer. All I know is that we are looking for a solution in the wrong place. To end this video, I simply ask for everyone watching to be conscious of how they are coming to solutions to societal problems, gun control included. We need to be skeptical of ideology and political tribalism. When coming to a conclusion about a particular topic, try and recognize that if a political party, or any group for that matter, claims to have all the answers, then they are likely missing a lot of nuance behind an issue. Be wary of people offering simple solutions to complex problems. Be open-minded, stay informed, and don't be bullied into violating your moral code. Speak the truth, or at least not lies, because the cost of not doing so is much, much greater than any possible repercussion.